Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? I hope everybody's having a wonderful day today. I'm doing a short video. I just want to clear up a few things. I want to talk about myself. I want to talk about me. I want to talk about my trajectory, what got me to where I am today, and such and such. Hopefully, this video doesn't get interrupted. Like yesterday's, I think a few days ago, I posted another video, and that one actually I had to cut short. Thankfully, I didn't just babble. Usually, how I try and get my ideas to you guys, which adds an extra 10 minutes to it. I gotta agree to that. I gotta admit to that. These are unedited, unscripted. They just go. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes, you get caught in this vibrational energy, and you just go and say what comes out. A lot of these messages are for you. A lot of these messages are not for you. They're not meant to be listened to. They're probably not meant to even be displayed or presented to you in any way. So, I want to say a few things. First of all, my experiences with how I started to contact my galactic family and how everything started. Just to have you avoid, listening to too many of my videos. And if I remember a few things, maybe I'll come on later on and post another video today. That's very likely that I might actually be able to do that. But it all first started as a kid. I remember I was about 8 or 9 years old. I was very happy because my mom bought me this pajama. She bought me a pair of pajamas, the pajama top and the pajama bottoms. And I was so filled with joy because I got these from her that I remembered it's you're like in a trance state. You're like in a state where you're here, and then for 5 seconds you feel like you snapped out of like a dizzy spell, right? And you're like, whoa, okay, what was that? Have you ever felt like you're just gotten dizzy all of a sudden and you're like, whoa, what is that? Or deja vu. It's usually when you've experienced a high dimensional part of yourself, and then your whole spirit, your soul, just kind of came back down at that specific moment, and you said to yourself, "Oh, I kind of felt like I've experienced this before," which is weird, right? So, and it happens simultaneously, and it happens in a place that's outside of time. So it's difficult, and I know you would understand if you know if you've experienced anything like this before. It's difficult to place it so that you can explain it in words. And there's lots of people out there that I follow. There's one specific channel that just says things that I say to myself, wow, I couldn't have said it better. I'm going to see if I can find her link and post it. I think it was just words. But I remember reading something just like that in a whole channeled reading once years ago. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to find it and I'm going to put it on this video as a link. In any case, so you're in a place that outside of time, and I felt like I knew then when I was 7 or 8 or something that I didn't want to be on this planet. I said to myself, I want to get out of here. I remember saying like, this isn't like it's like I woke up in an instant of happiness and pure bliss. It's the fifth dimensional experience. And then you're at a level where it's strange, right? Anyway, so I remember I opened a portal and I went through it. And that night when I went to bed, I imagined a crystalline city full of crystals, and it was very shiny. It was very bright. It was translucent white with colors inside. If you can shine, I don't know, I think a quartz crystal or some kind of object where you can kind of reflect the light and you can see different colors of the rainbow. If you do that kind of reflection, if you're holding this object, I believe it's a crystal or a piece of glass or something might do it. But it felt like that. It felt within those translucent tubes, you can see the colors of the rainbow. And this example, imagine that being in the form of a city. And I remember the way that I had to experience it so that I can process it later as a dream, but it really wasn't a dream, is I felt like I was swimming, and I was swimming and swimming and swimming and swimming, and to the point where these two guards came down. If you've seen my videos, I've sent this, spoken about this. But these two guards came down. They had tridents, right, like Atlantis. They just kind of sat down, and that immediately paused me. And I think I remember that night I woke up after that, or I went back into my body, and I didn't have any dream state then. But I remember that being the very first time that I knew that there was something, right. It was my wake up experience at a very young age when I was extremely happy and full of joy, and I came out of my body in that way. And I have lots of experiences in that. Let's see. Then we have, and then I went to church for a long time because my mom wanted me to go to church. So it wasn't that I wanted to. I had to pretty much be there. And I don't remember very much about lots of things, but I do remember people catching on to the things that I was saying because they started to manifest themselves in reality. I would say certain things about some situation that anyone was having, and I would specifically detail the what would happen to them in the next scenario, the next year or two, or the next month, or the next situation that they'll be placing themselves on. And the people at church saw this and they pointed me out in that way. And this is how I remember it. And it would happen every once in a while. Every once in a while, I think that would happen, and people started to catch on. Unfortunately, that caught the attention of the bad guys because they're infiltrated in all these places. So they start to pick out kids that are like that, right? They go into a tomato field and they try and pick out the ones that are ripe, the ones that are meant to be star seeds, and they start to involve themselves in your life in one way or another. You see them trying to seep in slowly. So when that happened at a 12, 13 maybe years old, I'm just trying to give you a timeline of how long I've been doing this so that when I say things or I tell you things, it's not just anything that's coming out of my head. It's scenarios and situations based on the experience that I've had in the past with these people that allows me to speak freely about certain scenarios and certain things that have happened, or they may or may not have happened. It doesn't matter, right? So at that very young, ripe age, that started to happen. And I've had these things, and I've had, you can tell when people look at you and they're like, whoa, like he knew to say that? Like, how could he be so specific about a certain thing like that, right? And they would still not bother or care too much, but I caught the attention of the wrong people. Then that was kept quiet for a while, and then later on, they wanted to see who my mother was. They were very interested in knowing who your parents are, mostly who your mother is, because that's the fastest and easiest way to trace a lineage. It would be through your mom, because anybody could be your dad, but your mom's lineage is something that they were looking into for me, because they just kept seeing these interests in me. So fast forward 2018, they started to, and this is the bad guys, they started to speak to my subconscious while I slept. Okay, and there was no consent for that. I'm just trying to piece you to who I am and what scenarios and what brought me to where I am now in my situation in life, and how the liberation of the planet involves everybody, and everybody has their own experience towards it. So they started to get me curious. The moment I noticed when they panicked the most was around mid 2018 to ever since mid 2018 there was a significant event that happened. Now, if hopefully you're listening, or maybe you not might be a person that participated in this in a long time, but there was a war. There was a specific showdown that happened in space where there were a galactic battle right outside of our atmosphere. This was another event that I remember it as being very recent. I think 2017, if I'm correct. 2017, I remember that event, June or July 2017. I was in a parking lot. I was next to my car. And I was having I felt a lot of pressure around my body. I felt very uncomfortable. I couldn't, I really just fell out of space. I fell out of line. I couldn't. It was as if I was my compass, if, was off. My compass was spinning. I knew I had to get up. I knew I had to go to work. I knew I had to do these things. But there was this nagging feeling, this overwhelming nagging feeling around me that was just too much to bear. What I think happened now, that in hindsight 2020, was that these dark forces were talking to my subconscious while I slept at night. So much that in my wake state, these things were still around. They were waking me up unbeknownst to them because they wanted to find out who I am and what I do and why am I here. They didn't want the planet to be liberated. They didn't want the scenarios that we're going through now and the things that I say and the things that I've been keeping for myself, which if you paid enough attention, these are the things that I just couldn't hold back. And I had to start this YouTube channel to put these things out. Because even just saying it is enough. Even no one listens to this. Saying and putting it out there is enough. Like in my last video, I said we're dipping in and out of the third dimensional physical, going to the fourth dimension, and if you hit a high enough of a bliss state, you can go to the fifth dimension and higher, right? So that scenario around me, it was bothering me because it was a subconscious information they wanted, but then they kept me, my mind, my physical back to earth, body and soul connection was disorientated because they were doing these things to get information, and they just wanted to know what the future would look like because that's a particular gift. So the future for them, they tried to figure out as best as whoever's told them. I don't know. They could channel a demon or whatever. They just didn't have any care because they were losing out on this battle for Earth. So let me just cut out for a second. We had a reptilian wanted to, about 3 or 4 weeks ago, he wanted to have a conversation. You'd remember this, at 10 o'clock, a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And he wanted to have a conversation. And his thing was, can you not, hurt the reptilians that are still on Earth that are stuck? Because we're not going to give them up. They're not going to be much of any of them left anyway. So with that in mind, then I'm just cutting out a bit there. But they wanted information about their future. They got to the point where they will get me in trouble at work. They get me fired. They go through things in my life, and there's just constant harassment and bothering. And I didn't know exactly what was going on. I didn't know why was this happening. I knew there was something because they were always around. They were always around because they knew you're a star seed. They're always around. For those that are awake enough or have been doing this for long enough, they're always around. But I didn't pay much attention to them because they didn't really bother me. They were just there, right? The reptilians were just there. Little thing here, little thing there. Whatever information they can seep into someone about me and my character, or my person, to get this momentum going, where I wasn't really gonna have any chance to go up the corporate ladder, and that's my whole life that I'm talking to you about. So for me, it doesn't bother me to think that I'm gonna make a change on this planet, because they brought me to the point where I just don't care anymore. And I don't mean to say it in any other way than we do not want any reptilians here on planet Earth. They're making it very clear because of the way that they treat the star seeds here. So that should give you a little perspective of my situation. So I'm not going to let anything get in the way of the mission to save planet Earth. It doesn't matter. Okay? So I want you to reference something. It's a movie. The movie, and I prefer the first title that came out, Underworld, where there's a battle between lichens and werewolves. So the backdrop of that movie is humanity. Humanity is the backdrop. And you watch these two seemingly human-looking species attack each other in the backdrop of humanity. And that's what I'm living through right now. So let's put it back into perspective. So when they started to really panic, then I was just like losing jobs, etc. causing disturbances. Like you get a telephone at 1 in the morning, a random phone will just call and wake you up in the middle of the night, really rattle you. Because the energies of the planet back between 2017 and 2018, 2019 was beginning to ramp up. So all they can do and say, well, we have a list of starseeds here, that people they knew that they were meant to liberate the planet. They just went out and attacked these people like me in order to get their point across that they didn't want any ascension process, because any one of us could ascend, any one of us could connect with their higher selves and ground these energies so that the planet starts to feel liberated and starts to rise up. So that's kind of when it started, 2017, 18, 19. And then after 19, November 2019, January 2020, you know what happened, right? This is their final push to try and get the sheeple down so they can do all whatever do as I say, not as I do, sort of deal, right? But we're not gonna let that happen. So then these disturbances, my awakening then started somewhere around 2019, and that's when I had late 2018, early 2019. I remember very clearly. It was about January or February 2019. You can see the sun setting at 4:30 in the afternoon, and it was a sunset. And it was very weird because me and my coworkers, 3 days in a row, we saw the sun setting you can see the bright red sun at 4:30 in the morning in January or February, and you can see that. And let's see, and it was amazing. It was something you just don't ever forget, like those kinds of things. It's like when you see your first spaceship for the first time, you never forget that. I looked around and I asked everyone else, I know they didn't see it because they were still minding their own business. I was on a bus going somewhere, and I saw this object while I was facing out, I saw an object tilt in a way that the sun's ray shone against the metal, and I could make out that there was something there, and I can kind of see the shape of that circle. And it just as quickly as it came, it left, and it was just a flash. It was a decimal of a second. It was less than half a second, less than a quarter second. It was just, it's like how you get a flash or an image in your third eye, and it just disappears like that, very fast. So that's 18, and then 2018 was very interesting. 2018, we started to wake up more. In 2018, the supercomputer spoke to me, and the supercomputer said, "We found her." So I found her in 2018, which is very interesting. It was 2018. So during the Lyran Reptilian Wars, Lyrans and Reptilians at some point got together, a group. They wanted to negotiate some kind of peace deal. I remember in my spirit body as a lion stepping out, and then a reptilian female stepped out, and we had a conversation, and we knew we had a connection. We knew there was something there. We couldn't quite put it together. Either way, we spoke, and she very bluntly said, they're not going to change. Their position isn't going to change regarding this. And I accepted that information as what it was, that they weren't going to change as reptilians. And then we kind of went back into that meeting. We stepped out of our bodies and we came back. We were in our astral body and we had a conversation. Now, this person that I met back then, she's a family member of mine, and she's in a different body, and she understands that we're at war. And that understanding just led me to believe the same thing that she said before. She was only just saying it again here, not too long ago, not a few years ago. She said, yeah, this isn't right. She chose to incarnate in a reptilian society to infiltrate from the inside, to get information, to live out a whole life, right? And then she comes out of this, and she just says it the way that I heard it. She said, like, they're no good. There's no saving the species for themselves. Out of the goodness of our heart, we went out there and see if we can figure anything out. So when we went out of our bodies and we had that Lyran reptilian talk, it was the same. We're not going to change. It's not going to be easy to do this. That was her concern, mostly what she said. And then we went back into that meeting that we had together at that time. So yeah, so the supercomputer said we found her, right? I don't want to say anything more about the details, but I heard the computer said that we found her, and that was very interesting that it happened. That was the supercomputer. All right, so 2018, 2019. By the time 2018, 2019 came, I had to go. I left to the Dominican Republic because I was up to my neck with these deep state guys. They didn't want to leave me alone, so I took a little vacation, and I had to step away for a little while. My subconscious then, my higher self said right before 2019 in November to come back to the United States because it wasn't going to be easy if I did it anytime after January. And I think we all know what happened in January, late 2019, early 2020. And ever since then, I've been here. And ever since then, I had quite a few more channeled messages coming in order for us to continue the process of liberating planet Earth. So I'm giving you a quick recap of my experiences the last maybe 5 years of my life, and a little early on in my life as a kid of how my life has turned out to be and what led me to be in this position that I am right now. So what I leave you with is the most important thing I'm going to say in this whole video is the Earth mission is to save planet Earth, regardless of my situation, regardless of anybody else's, or anything that's trying to come between me and that objective, because they have given me a reason to pursue this very strongly, and I'm not going to back down from that. So I leave you with this very happy video, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your evening.